Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just skimming the surface of psychological theories. We're really aiming to dismantle the machinery, understand the gears turning behind why we do what we do.
Exactly. We've got the stack of sources, really foundational stuff. Festinger on dissonance, Skinner, James Clear on habits, attachment theory, even a bit on, well, how irrational our choices can be.
It's quite a mix. And our goal here isn't just to list them off. We want to synthesize, right? See how these ideas maybe clash or maybe fit together.
That's the plan. We're looking at why we crave consistency, what actually makes change happen or not happen, and how much our environment and our relationships really dictate things, often without us even realizing it.
And when you lay it all out, this picture emerges. It's like our core mission as humans, psychologically speaking, isn't really about finding objective truth.
Not at all. It seems to be much more about achieving psychological comfort and efficiency. Our brains, our emotions, they're constantly seeking balance, seeking consistency, homeostasis.
Even if that means we have to be, well, frankly, illogical sometimes.
Precisely. We're wired to avoid that inner conflict, that discomfort. So if we can understand the tricks, the mechanisms we use to keep things comfortable inside,
then maybe we can start to get a handle on them, exert some conscious influence.
that's the hope. So let's start this journey with maybe the most fundamental engine driving this need for consistency: cognitive dissonance.
Okay, so Leon Festinger. His theory of cognitive dissonance, it's a cornerstone in social psychology, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the core idea is actually pretty simple on the surface. We strive for consistency. We want our beliefs, our opinions, our actions. We want them all to line up.
And when they don't.
Uh,
When you believe one thing but do another, or hold two ideas that just flat out contradict each other.
That's when you get that feeling, that psychological tension, that discomfort. That's dissonance.
And it's not just a passive feeling, right? It actively motivates us.
It really does. It's like an internal alarm bell saying something's off. Fix
Okay.
it. So we're driven to reduce that dissonance, usually by changing one of the conflicting parts.
What's really striking from the source is how unavoidable this is, especially when it comes to just making a choice, any choice.
Yeah. Festinger called dissonance an unavoidable outcome of deciding. The moment you pick option A over option B, boom, dissonance kicks in.
Okay, so walk us through what happens right after we commit, because it seems like our brains immediately go on the defensive.
They absolutely do. It's called post-decision certainty. Let's say before you choose, you rate option A and option B pretty closely. Maybe A is a 7 out of 10, B is a 6.5.
Okay.
The second you definitively choose A, your brain starts working to reduce the dissonance of maybe B was better, or what if I made a mistake?
So how does it do that?
It actively starts to rewrite the narrative. The
Okay.
sources show a noticeable increase in your confidence after the decision. You start focusing on all the good things about A, maybe even exaggerating them a bit.
And minimizing the downsides of A.
Exactly. And at the same time, you start focusing only on the negatives of option B, the one you rejected.
Mhm.
You essentially convince yourself that A was clearly the superior choice all along.
You're justifying the commitment you just made.
Precisely. It's an active psychological effort. We need to feel like we made a rational, good choice.
The car buying example from the sources really brings this home, doesn't it?
Oh, it's classic. So you finally buy that new car, you drive it off the lot. What happens next?
You start noticing all the ads for the car you just bought.
Yes. You actively seek out information that confirms your choice. You read reviews praising it. You look at articles about its features. You're building a case for yourself.
And what about ads for the competing models? The ones you considered but didn't buy?
You actively avoid them.
Yeah.
Or if you see them, you might dismiss them quickly. Why invite dissonance back in? Right, you're filtering reality to maintain that post-decision comfort.
It's like creating cognitive overlap. Finding ways to tell yourself the rejected option wasn't that great anyway.
Exactly. You reduce the perceived difference, making the choice feel less risky in retrospect. It defends your self-image as someone who makes good decisions.
Okay, this is where things get really, really counterintuitive. The whole idea of forced compliance. We'd normally think, bigger reward, bigger punishment. That's what changes minds.
Right. It seems logical, but the research flips that on its head. This is the minimal incentive paradox.
So explain that. You force someone to do something that goes against their private beliefs.
Let's say you make them argue for a position they strongly disagree with. Now, if you offer them a huge reward, like a lot of money, or threaten them with a severe punishment if they refuse,
They'll probably do it.
they'll do it, but they experience less internal dissonance, less pressure to actually change their private opinion.
Wait, why? That seems backwards.
Because the large reward or threat provides a powerful external justification. They can tell themselves, well, of course I said that dumb thing. They paid me a ton.
Yeah.
Or I only did because I had no choice.
Ah, okay. So the behavior is just public compliance. They don't need to square it with their internal beliefs.
Precisely. But now, imagine you give them a tiny reward, just $1, like in the classic Festinger and Carl Smick experiment, or a very mild threat.
Now there's no easy external excuse.
Exactly. The dissonance ramps up. Why did I just argue for something I don't believe in for basically nothing? The external justification is weak, so they're forced to find an internal one.
Which means changing their opinion.
Often, yes.
Right.
They reduce the dissonance by actually shifting their private attitude to align more closely with the behavior they just performed. You know, maybe that boring cast wasn't so bad after all. They start to believe their own lie.
Wow. So if you actually want someone to internalize a change, minimal pressure is more effective than overwhelming force.
It's a fascinating look at how our minds work to protect themselves. And this need for consistency, this avoidance of dissonance, it also governs what information we even let in.
Right, information seeking and avoidance. We seek out info that we think will reduce dissonance, yeah.
Well,
Like finding treatment options if you're worried about a disease. Gives you a sense of control.
true. But the avoidance part is maybe even more powerful because it keeps us locked into our existing patterns, even when they're harmful.
Like the smoking study mentioned in the sources.
A stark example. Heavy smokers were found to be significantly less likely than non-smokers or light smokers to believe the established scientific link between smoking and lung cancer.
It's not just that they didn't know, they were actively resisting the information.
Yes, they were filtering, dismissing, or downplaying data that created massive dissonance with their behavior. Admitting the full danger would mean confronting the conflict. I smoke versus smoking kills and I want to live. It's easier psychologically to just not believe the danger.
And this isn't just an individual thing, it plays out in groups too, doesn't it? We seek validation from people who agree with us.
Oh, definitely. Social support is a huge factor in managing dissonance. If your beliefs are challenged, finding others who share them provides comfort and validation. It reduces the dissonance.
And sometimes when a whole group feels dissonant, like if a shared belief or prediction fails.
The drive to reduce that collective dissonance can become incredibly strong. It can lead to things like mass proselyting. The group, facing this uncomfortable gap between belief and reality, might double down and try even harder to convince outsiders that they were right all along.
If they can convert others, it validates their original commitment and eases the shared discomfort.
It's a powerful social dynamic, all stemming from that fundamental need for internal consistency.
Okay, so if our default setting is basically consistency maintenance, protecting our current beliefs and habits, how on earth do we ever actually change anything significant?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this brings us squarely into the realm of habits, environment, and the mechanics of behavior change.
We're shifting from the why of consistency to the how of change. The sources on habits, like James Clear's work, really emphasize that it's not about big, heroic transformations.
No, not usually. Success, or failure for that matter, tends to be the slow accumulation of daily habits. Small routines, repeated over time.
And the key idea there is focusing on trajectory, not just current results. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, it's crucial. We often get fixated on where we are right now. Am I rich? Am I fit? Am I successful? But the habits perspective says we should be much more concerned with our direction.
Like the example you gave earlier, the broke person saving a tiny bit each month versus the millionaire overspending.
Exactly. The person saving consistently, even if it's just a little, is on a positive trajectory. Their system is working for them, even if the results aren't dramatic yet. The millionaire spending more than they earn. Their current state looks good, but their trajectory is heading towards trouble. The system of habits matters more than the immediate outcome.
So how do we build a better system? The sources talk about the 4 laws of behavior change.
Right. If you want to build a good habit or break a bad one, you need to manipulate these 4 levers. Make the desired action. 1, obvious. 2, attractive. 3, easy. And 4, satisfying.
Let's dig into attractive and easy, because they involve some clever self-manipulation. How do you make something like, say, flossing or doing paperwork attractive? It's inherently not fun for most people.
You don't rely on willpower alone. You piggyback on things you already do or want to do. That's where temptation bundling and habit stacking come in.
Okay, explain those.
Habit stacking links a new habit to an existing one. The formula is, after I current habit, new habit I need. So after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You anchor the new habit to something already established.
Makes sense. Leverage momentum and temptation bundling.
That links in action you want to do with an action you need to do. The formula expands. After I current habit, I will have it I need. After I have it I need, I will have it I want.
Ah, so the reward comes right after the effort.
Exactly. After I finish this work report habit I need, I will listen to my favorite podcast habit I want. Or, I only get to watch my favorite Netflix show habit I want while I'm on the treadmill habit I need. You make the desirable thing contingent on the necessary thing.
Clever. And make it easy is about reducing friction, right? Lowering the barrier to entry.
To almost zero, if possible. Want to eat healthier? Prep healthy snacks and put them front and center in the fridge. Want to practice guitar? Leave it out on a stand, not packed away in its case. Reduce the number of steps between you and the desired action.
Design your environment for success.
Absolutely. But, okay, these tweaks get you started. They make the habit easier to initiate, what keeps it going long term. The sources point towards something deeper than just rewards.
This is where identity comes in, right?
Yes. Immediate rewards making it satisfying in the moment are crucial for getting a habit off the ground. But what sustains it over months and years is when the habit becomes part of your identity.
Shifting from I'm trying to quit smoking to I am a non-smoker, or I'm trying to write to I am a writer.
Exactly. When the behavior aligns with the type of person you believe yourself to be, the habit itself becomes reinforcing. The intrinsic rewards, feeling healthier, feeling accomplished, feeling aligned with your values, become the primary drivers. That's way more powerful than just getting an external pat on the back.
But this idea of consciously shaping our identity and habits, it runs into some tension with the behaviorist perspective, particularly someone like B.F. Skinner.
Oh, profound tension. Skinner had a much more, deterministic view. He argued that human behavior isn't primarily driven by internal states or identity, but is fundamentally controlled by the environment and its consequences.
The contingencies of reinforcement, as he called them.
Right. For Skinner, even culture itself is just the set of customary behaviors that have been shaped and maintained by these environmental consequences, rewards, and punishments, essentially. He saw free will as largely an illusion.
And he talked about different types of environmental control shaping those behaviors.
He did. He distinguished between aversive control and non-aversive control. Aversive is the stick using punishment or the threat of punishment to stop or compel behavior. Think historical examples like slavery or threats of legal action or even religious threats like hellfire. You act to avoid something bad.
And non-aversive control.
That's the carrot. Using positive reinforcement rewards, praise, money privileges to encourage desired behavior. Think wages, bonuses, good grades, social approval. You act to get something good.
Skinner noted that society was moving more towards non-aversive methods, right? More subtle, maybe, but just as controlling.
Yes, he saw that shift. While punishment is obvious, non-aversive control through rewards can be more insidious, shaping behavior without the controlled person necessarily feeling coerced. But it's still external control dictating the action.
And this environmental focus has really big implications for how we think about responsibility and blame. Skinner's point about the autonomous inner man.
That's a critical point. He argued that when we explain behavior by appealing to internal, unobservable things like someone's character, motivation, laziness, or even genetic predispositions like aggression, it often serves a convenient purpose.
Which is?
It exonerates the controller, it shifts the responsibility away from the environment and the systems of control, and places it squarely on the individual's internal, unchangeable nature.
So if a student fails, the teacher can blame the student's lack of innate ability or motivation instead of questioning the teaching methods or the classroom environment.
Precisely. If there's crime, we blame the inherent flaws of the criminals, rather than the societal conditions, the environmental contingencies that might foster crime. It lets parents, teachers, governments, institutions off the hook for the outcomes produced by the environments they create or manage.
That's a challenging perspective, especially when we pair it back with the habit science saying how hard it is to break ingrained patterns. If habits are these deep neurological grooves,
Almost impossible to erase entirely, according to the sources.
and our behavior is heavily shaped by environmental triggers and rewards, how much does pure willpower actually count for?
Skinner would say very little. And even the habit folks emphasize that simply resisting temptation is usually a losing strategy in the long run. It burns mental energy.
So the smarter path is?
Change the environment. Remove the triggers for the bad habit. Make the good habit the path of least resistance. You become, to a large extent, a product of the environment you inhabit. Willpower is finite. Environmental design is constant.
Okay, so the environment isn't just the physical setup or the reward systems. It's also deeply relational, isn't it? The people around us. This takes us into emotional regulation, attachment, and those core needs that shape our stability.
Absolutely. And this is where attachment theory offers a really powerful counter-narrative to a lot of pop psychology that emphasizes total independence.
Right, the idea that being needy is bad, that you should be completely self-sufficient. Attachment science says something quite different.
It says dependency, in the context of secure attachment, isn't a weakness. It's a biological reality. Once we form a significant attachment bond parent-child, or committed partners, we essentially become a single physiological unit.
One physiological unit. That sounds intense.
It is. Our nervous systems literally interact and regulate each other. Your partner isn't just someone who offers comfort. They actively help manage your heart rate, your blood pressure, your breathing, your stress hormone levels.
They become your external regulator, your secure base.
Exactly. The Cohen MRI study is stunning evidence for this. Women under threat of a mild electric shock showed significantly less stress-related brain activity when holding their husband's hand compared to holding a stranger's hand or no hand.
And the effect was strongest for those who reported high satisfaction in their marriage.
Precisely. The felt security of the bond provided a tangible biological buffer against stress. Your partner becomes your primary resource for managing distress.
This completely reframes behaviors that might otherwise seem, I don't know, irrational or overly emotional in relationships.
It really does. Things previously labeled clingy or manipulative can often be understood as protest behaviors. These are driven by an attachment system that's feeling threatened or insecure.
Like what kind of behaviors?
Repeated calling or texting when feeling distant, withdrawing sullenly, trying to make the partner jealous, picking fights. These are often unconscious attempts by someone with an anxious attachment style to reestablish connection and ensure their partner is emotionally available. Their system is screaming, "Are you there for me?"
And on the flip side, you have the avoidance strategies.
Right. These are about deactivating the attachment system to maintain distance and perceived self-reliance, because closeness itself feels threatening or engulfing.
How does that look in practice?
It can manifest as keeping secrets, avoiding deep emotional intimacy, focusing on flaws in the partner, pulling away physically or emotionally when things get serious, or maybe consistently choosing partners who are unavailable or unsuitable, ensuring the relationship has an impossible future.
So it's not necessarily malice, it's the attachment system trying to maintain its preferred distance.
Often, yes. Understanding these patterns, whether in ourselves or our partners, helps move away from blame and towards seeing them as predictable, biologically rooted responses to perceived threats to connection or autonomy.
This biological link, this deep connection between our emotional state and our physical state becomes incredibly stark when we talk about trauma.
Oh, absolutely. The sources, like Bessel van der Kolk's work, emphasize that trauma isn't just a story we tell ourselves about a bad event. It changes the brain, the body, the entire organism.
PTSD means the body is still living the threat, right? Even when the danger is long gone.
Exactly. The body's defense systems, fight, flight, freeze, remain chronically activated. This constant internal state of high alert, or sometimes shutdown and numbness, creates what van der Kolk calls suppressed inner chaos.
And that has real physical consequences.
Major ones. It contributes to things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues, sleep disturbances. The body is essentially burning itself out trying to manage a threat that exists only in the past imprint. The alarm system is stuck in the on position.
So healing from trauma can't just be about talking it through. It has to involve the body.
Critically, the sources outline 3 essential avenues for healing. 1. Top-down. Using talk therapy, processing memories, making sense of the experience, creating a coherent narrative.
Okay.
2. Medicines and technology. Using medications to help regulate the overwhelming physiological arousal, or technologies like EMDR or neurofeedback to help repattern brain activity.
And the third?
3. Bottom-up. Engaging the body directly through experiences that contradict the feelings of helplessness and terror stored from the trauma. This includes things like breathwork, yoga, movement, mindful awareness of bodily sensations, even therapeutic touch. You have to give the body new experiences that prove safety now.
It's about retraining the nervous system at its core.
Precisely. And we see neurologically why this is so important. During intense emotional states, intense fear, rage, even overwhelming grief, the more primitive subcortical parts of the brain activate strongly.
The amygdala, the emotional alarm center.
Right. And simultaneously, activity in the prefrontal cortex, especially the medial prefrontal cortex, MPFC, significantly decreases.
The MPFC is like the brain's CEO, the
Yeah.
part responsible for rational thought, planning, impulse control.
Exactly. It's the brake pedal. When its inhibitory function goes offline due to overwhelming emotion, that's when people lose it. They might explode in anger over something small, freeze up under pressure, or make impulsive, damaging decisions. Trauma can make that brake pedal much less reliable.
Amidst all this talk of biological drives and trauma responses, it feels important to bring in something from the sources that offers a different kind of navigation, the Jungian concept of synchronicity.
Ah, yes. Meaningful coincidence. It fits interestingly here, doesn't it? While attachment is about finding stability through external connection, synchronicity offers a sense of guidance from within, or perhaps from something larger.
Carl Jung defined it as a causal connecting principle, right? When an interstate thought, a dream, a feeling aligns meaningfully with an external event, without a direct cause and effect link.
Exactly. It's not just random chance. It feels significant, like the universe is winking at you or pointing you in a certain direction.
And in the context of healing or recovery, especially when you're battling old habits or feeling lost, spotting these moments, it can be incredibly powerful.
It really can. Maybe you're wrestling with a specific problem and you randomly open a book to a page that speaks directly to it. Or you bump into someone who offers just the insight you needed. These moments can feel like signposts.
It offers a sense of reassurance, maybe, that even if things feel chaotic, there's an underlying pattern or a right path emerging. It counteracts that feeling of being purely determined by past trauma or environmental forces.
It connects back to that need for psychological comfort, perhaps, but in a different way. Not forcing cognitive consistency, but finding a sense of meaning and coherence in the unfolding of life. It honors the intuitive, unconscious side of ourselves.
Speaking of navigating difficult experiences, let's touch on the crucial difference between guilt and shame. The sources are very clear on this.
Extremely important distinction for mental health and the ability to change. Guilt says, I did something bad. The focus is on the behavior.
Which is constructive, potentially.
Right. Guilt can motivate us to apologize, make amends, learn from the mistake, and change our future behavior. It's generally adaptive.
Shame, on the other hand.
Shame says, I am bad. It's an attack on the core self. It doesn't focus on the action. It concludes that the self is inherently flawed, defective, unworthy.
And that's destructive.
Deeply corrosive. Shame breeds feelings of worthlessness, isolation, and paralysis. It whispers, you can't change, you'll always mess up, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It undermines the very belief that improvement is possible.
This connects directly to the ideas around perfectionism and self-kindness, doesn't it? We often think being hard on ourselves is necessary for high achievement.
It's a common misconception. The research actually shows that self-compassionate people tend to set standards just as high as highly self-critical people. They embrace adaptive perfectionism, striving for excellence, having high goals.
But the difference is how they react when they inevitably fall short.
Exactly. Self-compassionate people have much lower levels of maladaptive perfectionism. Maladaptive perfectionism isn't just about high standards. It's about the harsh self-criticism, the fear of failure, the feeling that your worth is contingent on flawless performance. When self-compassionate people fail or make mistakes, they don't engage in that brutal self-attack.
They treat themselves with the same kindness they might offer a friend in that situation.
Right. Which, paradoxically, makes them more resilient and better able to learn from the setback and try again. The harsh self-criticism of maladaptive perfectionism actually undermines long-term achievement and well-being.
Okay, we've seen how we're driven by consistency, shaped by habits and environment, and deeply influenced by our emotional biology and relationships. Now, let's wrap things up by looking at how these factors conspire to make our actual decision-making processes. Well, often pretty illogical, starting with the sheer overwhelm of choice itself.
The paradox of choice. Barry Schwartz nailed this one. We live in a culture that celebrates choice above almost all else. More options equals more freedom, right?
That's the assumption. But Schwartz argues it's become a kind of tyranny. We say yes to more choices in every little domain, 50 kinds of toothpaste, endless streaming options, countless investment plans.
But we never really stop to consider the cumulative effect of all that choosing, the constant demand on our decision-making energy.
And the result isn't necessarily more happiness or satisfaction. Often, it's the opposite.
Yeah, the sources suggest that too much choice often leads to increased anxiety, analysis paralysis, and perhaps most significantly, more regret.
Why does more choice amplify regret? Schwartz points to two main factors.
First, it increases your sense of personal responsibility. If there were only two options and you picked the slightly worse one, well, that's unfortunate. But if there were 50 options and you picked one that disappoints, you feel like you messed up. You had all the choices, you should have done better, the blame feels heavier.
And the second factor.
It increases the ease with which you can imagine a counterfactual alternative. With so many options available, it's incredibly easy to think, oh, if only I'd chosen option X or option Y, that would have been perfect. You torture yourself with the ghosts of choices not made, which diminishes satisfaction with the choice you actually did make.
This feeling of dissatisfaction can even be worsened by trying too hard to be rational about the choice, can't it? The studies on introspection.
Right. This is fascinating. Asking people to really think hard and articulate why they prefer something, whether it's a poster for their room, a potential date, jam flavors can actually lead them to make choices they're less satisfied with later.
How does that work? Why does thinking more make the choice worse?
It suggests that our initial preferences are often based on intuitive, gut-level feelings that are hard to put into words. When you force yourself to verbalize reasons, you tend to focus on the aspects that are easy to articulate, maybe the practical features, the logical pros and cons.
But those might not be the things that actually drive your long-term satisfaction.
Exactly. You might choose the poster with the right colors based on your reasoning, but ignore the one that just felt better, and later find you don't really connect with the one you chose. It implies we don't always think first and then decide. Sometimes the feeling comes first, and the reasoning tries to catch up, not always successfully.
This leads us beautifully into the work on predictable irrationality, like Dan O'Reilly's stuff.
Yeah.
Our choices aren't just based on inherent value, they're massively influenced by context and comparison.
Oh, massively.
Well,
We're suckers for relative comparisons. The decoy effect is the absolute classic example.
the Economist subscription study.
That's the one. People were offered three choices. 1, internet-only subscription for $59. 2, print-only subscription for $125. 3, Chris, print and internet bundle for $125.
Okay, that print-only option for $125 seems obviously worse than the bundle at the same price.
Totally useless on its own, and indeed almost nobody chose it. But its presence served a crucial purpose. It acted as a decoy. By being there, it made the print and internet bundle for $125 look like an incredible bargain compared to the print-only option. It shifted the comparison point. People weren't really comparing the bundle to the $59 internet-only anymore. They were comparing it to the terrible $125 print-only decoy.
Making the bundle seem like a huge win.
Exactly. And when Ariely removed the decoy option, offering only the $59 internet and the $125 bundle, guess what happened?
People shifted towards the cheaper $59 option.
Dramatically. The perceived value of the bundle plummeted without the useless decoy there to make it look good in comparison. It shows we don't have stable internal value meters. We assess value based on what's presented right next to it.
Wow, we're easily manipulated by framing. And this irrationality even extends to our ethics, apparently. The studies on cheating with non-monetary items.
Yeah, this is a sobering insight into moral flexibility. People are significantly more likely to cheat, bend rules, or steal when dealing with things that aren't directly cash, like tokens, office supplies, inflated expense reports, than they are to take the equivalent amount in actual money.
Why the difference? Stealing is stealing, isn't it?
Logically, yes. But psychologically, the step of converting the non-monetary item, like a token won through cheating, into cash, or just the abstract nature of company supplies, creates a kind of cognitive distance. It blurs the moral lines just enough.
It makes it easier to rationalize. It's just a token. Everyone takes pens from the office.
Right. It allows the action to bypass our stricter internal standards about stealing actual currency. That little bit of abstraction provides wiggle room for self-deception, making minor dishonesty feel less dishonest. #tag outro.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive, hasn't it? We've really journeyed through the core of our psychological operating system.
We really have. From that fundamental drive for consistency that shapes our beliefs' cognitive dissonance, through to how our environment and tiny habits sculpt our actions.
And then into the deep currents of our emotional lives, how attachment wires us for connection, how trauma reshapes us, and even how moments of synchronicity might offer guidance.
And finally, seeing how all these underlying forces make our supposedly rational choices often quite illogical and susceptible to manipulation.
I think the big takeaway, weaving through all these different threads, is just how much is happening beneath the surface, you know?
Absolutely. The conscious self, the part of us that thinks it's in the driver's seat making rational decisions, is constantly being influenced, shaped, nudged by these deeper drives for comfort, by the subtle cues in our environment, by our biology, by the way choices are framed.
We're maybe less the authors of our lives than we like to think.
Or at least we're authors working with a very complex, often hidden set of influences. Being informed, understanding these mechanisms, dissonance reduction, habit loops, attachment needs, cognitive biases, that's the first step towards gaining maybe a little more conscious influence over them. Recognizing we are products of our environment and habits is key.
Which brings us right back to that fundamental tension we touched on that runs through so many of these sources, the tension between determinism and agency.
Right. Yeah. We heard Freud's point, echoed in different ways elsewhere, that finding happiness, or salvation as he put it, isn't one size fits all. Everyone has to figure out their own path.
Taking into account what satisfaction is realistically possible from the world, and crucially, how much strength you actually have to change that world, or yourself, to align with your wishes.
And that's the final provocative question, isn't it? If Skinner is largely right about environmental control, and habits are deeply wired, how much strength do we truly have? How much genuine agency exists to carve out a new trajectory?
Can we really choose our own salvation, consciously design our identity and habits like Clear suggests? Or are we mostly sophisticated puppets dancing on the strings of reinforcement contingencies and biological imperatives?
Where does the power to change the environment or the self truly lie? That's something profound to wrestle with.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.